We all are quite worried about the problem of infant obesity, a problem that's exploding, especially in countries like the United States. Even mid-income countries, we are seeing many children becoming obese, and this is also a social problem. If we ever thought that we as cardiologists will get out of work, you will tell us there is still a lot of problems ahead of us in the next generation.
I hope so, yes. Really. Good morning. I'm just talking about healthy people. No statistics, no drugs, no borderline values. But we are speaking about young people. And we are not speaking about disease, but about prevention of disease. And this PEP family heart study, I have to press anything, but I don't know what I have to press. Escape. It's more difficult than...
Yes, here's escape.
Oh, there.
And then you go to this one.
Perfect.
It's a problem for us like old men like we are.
Yeah. It's always the same. I just want to explain what the PEP family heart study is. The PEP family heart study is a project from Nuremberg in Germany, working with families, 3,500 families, over 15 years. And the aim of this study is to detect risk factors of cardiovascular disease. And not only to detect these risk factors, but to try to prevent them by lifestyle modification. And as early as you start with that, you better the chance, we hope at least, to do that. This project has just done 15 years, and I'm happy to present some data here. The background is that we are not speaking with adults, and children are no little adults. They have their own detection, their own problem. And one of their own problems is that they are growing, continuously growing. And this means that they change their normal values, not only for blood pressure, but also for lipids and for body weight. So if we have to treat this point, we have no endpoints. We have no point where we can say, okay, if you have this disease, this blood pressure, then you have to do that. So we have only the sliding, rising risk. And we had to decide when to do what. And so the easiest way is to try to change lifestyle. Healthy lifestyle is not riskful, but it had many chances. And therefore, we tried to do it as early as possible. So this one word for the background. The problem is the device, how to measure the blood pressure. Today we have the oscillometric, but it's easier, but the auscultatory are the old-fashioned method, and we are always working with auscultatory methods. We have a very low rate of risk factors in these families. They are health-conscious families who are asked to participate for this long-term project. And they are voluntary and without any fee. And so we have very healthful subjects who are prone to learn something about healthy lifestyle and who accept to be controlled every year. So this is most have a problem to treat, to keep them on hand and to follow just their lifestyle. So we have very low rates of, I think abdominal obesity, of general obesity, and the most problem is the body fat. And the problem that we can't measure with BMI, body mass index, the fat content, we have also the lean body mass with it. So it's difficult to have other measures. And so we measured waist circumference, we measured body fat, and this is in relation to the hypertension. And the prevalence of hypertension is increasing with obesity, from 9.8 in the overweight to 22% in children and adolescents who are obese. Sorry for that, but
yeah. Next here, okay, and then it will disappear, and then you can press this one.
Yes, thank you. So I think those are the odds ratios, and taking the last in the obese, it's 5.9. This means that an obese child has a nearly 6-fold risk to be hypertensive, a girl. And for hypertensive boys, it's 4.9, but nearly 5. So being obese is one sign of hypertension. And not only of hypertension, but if you look at the left side, we have also the pre-hypertension. And this also can be diagnosed already by obesity. So the question is, what can we do if we have obese child? Measure the blood pressure. And what can we do if we have hypertension in children? Decrease body weight and treat obesity. And the association is not only with obesity and for hypertension in boys and girls, but also the combination with other measures of obesity. And this means the body fat, it can be easily measured by skin fold thickness, and the waist circumference, and is in combination with body mass index, increased body mass index, it's even higher, 6.3-fold risk if you have increased body fat and if you have increased BMI. The combination of abdominal obesity, and I think this is different from the adults, is measuring the waist to height ratio. It's very easy to do, and measure the waist circumference. And if you have these two measures, you have a good measure of abdominal obesity. And in the adults, we know it is one important risk factor for hypertension, and not only for hypertension, but also for other cardiovascular diseases. This combined waist circumference plus waist to height ratio is a good measure for early hypertension and a good measure to follow the treatment, successful treatment. And coming back to the conclusion, this is family-based study that we have a strong association with increased blood pressure and fat patterning. This means body mass index and waist circumference and waist to height ratio. And if you treat overweight, you also treat blood pressure. And contrary to the adults, we have not the finding that abdominal obesity is the worst thing, but the combination of abdominal obesity and BMI. And it's very important to have thorough measurements to do that. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for this frightening presentation. We have in our audience one of Europe's best epidemiologists, Dr. Pedro Marques Vidal. Can we have your view on this?
Well, European Society of Cardiology puts a strong emphasis on prevention. And prevention starts, as some would say, from the mother to the disease. Well, let's begin with children. What we see here, when we look at these odds ratios, is that each fatty cell, each adipocyte, is paving the way to hypertension, even in children. And so you can imagine just a lot of small lipid cells, because what we've seen is the strongest odds ratio is not for body mass index, because body mass index also takes into account your muscle. But the strongest odds ratio is for the fat content in children. And so the fatter you are, the the best is the road paved for the silent killer, the hypertension. And these are, I don't know the age of these children. How old are they?
The children are 7 years, and those are 14,000. It's the mean 7 years, and the adolescents are 14 years about. So those are 7,000.
7 years.
They are 7 years old. I don't know how many of you have children age 7. Now imagine that some of them are already hypertensive now. Yeah. How will they be when they are, say, 80? Yeah. I don't think we will have the 73% hypertensive at 80. I don't think they will reach that age, unfortunately. Yeah. So this puts strong emphasis on school is the optimal way to gain good lifestyle. And so we are quietly concerned when some politicians urge the decrease in physical activity in schools, or even allowing children to eat certain things not that healthy. That's a constant struggle.
But gentlemen, may I ask the two of you, is there any hope for these kids? If they lose weight, will the development into hypertension, will it stop? Will they become like healthy adults? Or are they already destroyed?
No, that's just the optimism we have.
The optimism?
Yes. Okay. And one important point is we have no follow-up of this age. But one important point, in addition to school, is the family. The family-based study. And we asked every year the newcomers to school with their family to participate. And only together with the whole family, eating, sports, all together may help to decrease weight or to conserve the low weight. And this helps the children. We learned from our families that the parents learn from their children. We have dietary protocols, 1 year, 1 week. And they have to measure everything they have, always on the scale. And the kids know how to do that. The father said, okay, write down 1 bread with butter and sausage. No, father, not bread. What kind of bread? What kind of sauces? What kind of fat? How much of this fat? All this is teaching, the children are teaching the parents. And therefore, this 15 years follow-up, we learned from our families. 3,500 families. They are not every year there. 1 year they can't go there. But this, I think, is very, very important to keep them online. It's only in Nuremberg, a city of 500,000 people. It is rather easy for us to keep them and to go to schools and have the teachers. And it's working. And so I hope we can a positive answer.
Prevention in children is a family business, so to say. Yeah.
I think that's important for the mass media, that the parents there are good studies showing that the role of the parents is underestimated. This is important to get out that message. Now, we're talking too much. You are supposed to ask questions. Anybody?
If I may ask, what are the references for hypertension in children? Probably the figures are different from the adults. Whom do you consider hypertension in your study? That's one question. And the second one, did you look into diencephalic syndrome, which represents both by obesity and hypertension? Did you have kids with this kind of...
Oh, yes, we have. Sorry for that. But the question is, we take the percentiles. And below the 85th percentile, everything is fine. 85 to 90, it's borderline. But have the 90th to 95th percentile, it's pre-hypertension. And if you are above the 95th percentile or above 120 to 80 millimeter Hg, then you have hypertension. But not only one measurement, as you know, we have to do this 3 times on separate days. Because you must be careful, if you measure this, you have to do it several times and not just take, oh, you have hypertension. Come back 1 day later and we measure it again. I think that's a very important point. And the other point is that you have a correct scale, that you have everything just exactly. And so if you have the measurements, just coming back to your question from the metabolic syndrome, if you measure the waist circumference, you must take the correct point. You must take this part, upper rib, lower rib, and the crista iliaca, in the middle of that. If you have a belly and I measure there, it's not good. So you must do this very exactly at the scale. And we did this in children and correlated their association with other risk factors. And if we measure a child with risk factors, we can write it down and then go to your father and go to your mother and tell them to look for a doctor because they are on risk for low HDL, for high LDL cholesterol, for high blood pressure. So these measures can go back to the parents if the children have the information.
What about the encephalic syndrome?
The metabolic syndrome?
The encephalic, hypothalamic. Well,
I have no answer for that. We didn't do that.
Just behind you, the lady behind you.
Hi, sorry, Laura Donnelly from the Daily Telegraph. I just wanted to check, with the odds ratios, it talks about in normal weight children, prevalence of hypertension was 5.4%, rising to 9.8% for the overweight and 21.5% among the obese. So that sounds like a fourfold rise between normal weight and the obese. But I was just trying to work out, because it says it's a six-fold rise among boys and a fourfold rise among girls. I just wanted to clarify how that works.
I didn't get it. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to check. So when it says that there's 21.5% of those who are obese had hypertension, and that's compared with 5.4% of normal weight. Yeah. So that's about 4 times as much.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, but it says that the odds ratio was 5.9 for boys.
It was 4.3 for boys and
5.9
for girls.
Yes.
Yes.
But then when it's got both genders put together, it seems to be 4 times as much. So I'm just trying to understand.
Right? Yeah, that's correct.
But you would expect the difference to be between 4.3 and 5.9.
Yeah.
Yes, Peter, could you help out here?
The question is, why is there a difference between boys and girls?
No,
I don't know.
That's not the question.
Why the values are higher than joint?
Yeah.
I believe the values for each, I didn't participate in the study, the epidemiologists, they are most likely adjusted for other confounders than in the initial study, than in the global analysis. When you divide 21.5% by 4.5, it's 4, but when you adjust for age and eventually for other
age and height,
then you might get some differences.
That's right.
Have children of 7 and 14.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
it's from 3 to 18 years, the whole range.
Well, just to close off this session, some exciting things, the renal denervation reactivated, and the problem we have with the elderly people, this is a frightening picture, so many people on drugs, and there is no hope for the future if I get your message right. So let's go for lunch instead. So if you want to ask anybody from the panel here,